I'm hoping this is a good episode today because Yasmin is vexed and stressed. I'm seeing the other side of what it's like to be an influencer. Yasmin, there is drama happening on TikTok right now.
I've always been that person where it's like, you don't have to like someone just because they exist online. But you know what's insane? When people say, I met Yasmin in 2016 for 20 seconds and they were rude to me, so that means they're a terrible person and we should all cancel them. You don't know me!
You don't know me!
Never knew me! Like, and also, even if you did know me, that's 10 years ago!
Do you know what? People need to give a little bit of space for people to be having a bad day. You won't catch me defending influencers every day, but I feel like you guys are under so much pressure to be like happy all the time. You can't be having an off day.
Do you know what? Here's the thing. If someone was to come forward and be like, Yasmin Simon's a bitch, I'd be like, yeah, I am a bitch. What now?
No, I don't think you are.
I am a bitch. I'd rather people meet me and be like, oh, you weren't as bitchy as I thought, instead of being like, Yasmin Simon was a bitch. Yeah, what now?
Oh, so you want to under-promise and over-deliver?
Yeah, like, maybe I am a bitch. What now?
All right. Okay, I am going to speak on Yasmin's behalf before this episode starts. And I can tell you, as someone who has observed Yasmin over many, many years, Yasmin is somebody like anybody else who sometimes, who is a really bubbly, outgoing, friendly person, but has a limit to how much they can do that, and sometimes gets a little bit overstimulated and a bit overwhelmed with how much is going on, how many people they're having to talk to, and sometimes they just go a little bit introverted, and when they're in that space, that headspace, they can't even speak to me, let alone people that they've never met before. And so we all need to be a bit more understanding on this planet. I saw people coming for Corey Taylor, Yasmin, and I saw red. I was about to go stabbing people on TikTok.
Please don't get arrested. I can't. If you do, can I make a true crime video about you?
Hello and welcome to On Wednesdays We Wear Black with me, Sophie K, and Yasmin Suman.
Hello, it's me, the angry influencer. I'm not even an influencer. No one should be influenced by me.
I am so excited for you to get old, Yasmin, because the best thing is you really genuinely stop caring what people think, and it's the best feeling in the world. It starts from about 28, 30, and it's the best thing that ever happens. Today's is ironic because it's actually an episode that I came up with from seeing some posts on social media.
Oh God, okay, what now? Fucking hell, what now?
Today's episode was inspired by two posts that I saw. And both of these posts were done by people in their 20s. And the first one was someone commenting on a post on TikTok saying that rock is inherently racist and that it didn't come from the blues.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a whole take. And then there was somebody else that I saw posting, and no hate to this person because they're quite young, but they were saying they could never listen to metal because it's a racist genre. So I thought we would have a look at the history of rock itself, but also the crossovers of rap and rock and how they came together, with rap being an inherently black music genre when it came out at first.
Okay, this is a lot already. Okay, let's get. Are we really gonna go there?
We're gonna go there, Yasmin, and I'm gonna start with like the old school stuff, and then I want you to take over and talk to us about where we're at now. I want us to go on this journey because I think sometimes people go, rock comes from blues, blah 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 blah, and they taking our music back and all this kind of stuff, you know, and they sometimes don't know the actual history. So let's be nerdy. Let's go into the history. This took hours of research. I'm not even going to lie. So it's not like one of our unresearched episodes. I went in on this one.
I wrote articles specifically about emo rap and the progression of black artists in rock and metal and oh girl, we could be here all day. Also, hello, we're both people of colour in rock, so I feel like if anyone's going to talk about this, it's going to be us.
So let's talk about this. Now, a lot of us, the kind of rap that we hear today isn't how it originated, because rap was born out in kind of the 1960s, early 70s, and you had MCs and DJs, some of whom were former members of gangs who used DJing, dancing and MCing as an alternative to gang warfare.
Okay.
So you have like DJ Cool Herc gave the community its blueprints and its first brand of hip-hop music called B-Beat. And then hip-hop DJs and MCs originally performed in like house parties and community centres and city parks. It's something that a lot of people probably can't understand today. But rap wasn't in the mainstream. It wasn't a genre that you heard on the radio, for example. Like you would have heard black music on there, like soul and R&B, but you won't have been like rhythm and blues rather than what we now know as R&B. But you would have been hearing rap on the radio. And that's where people got their music. They didn't have music on the television that they watched as much then, really. So it was interesting because it was at the time when that started to build by the mid-1970s, where record and film producers noticed, wanted to capitalise on that hip-hop culture. And Sylvia Robinson is often cited because she was from Sugar Hill Records. And she introduced rapping into the mainstream with the release of Rapper's Delight in 1979 by the Sugar Hill Gang.
Yummy. Okay.
That's where we're at.
You did your research.
I did, Yasmin. But I wanted to know, like, where we came from with rap, where we came from with rock, what music was like, and how it is evolved. Because that's the only way we can understand it, right?
And you know, I had a better appreciation for the music I listened to when I understood where it came from. This is such a music nerdy episode. I love this for us.
I love it. This is the episode that we promised we'd never do. We were like, we're not going to be those music nerds that go, That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, we're not going to be those music nerds who sit here and talk about music. Lame. And here we are doing that.
Here we are. This is what we're doing. And you have to listen to it because if you don't, you'll get in trouble. So, I don't know who with, but you just will. Rock and roll, however, was a musical style in the kind of more in the early to mid 50s, and it came directly from the rhythm and blues, the R&B as we now call it, of the 1940s, which itself developed from earlier blues and that beat heavy jump blues, boogie woogie, up-tempo jazz, swing music. That's where that came from. And now when you look at metal, some people cite the Kinks, the Beatles, Steppenwolf as the bands that released the earliest metal songs. But then you also have those early bands like Black Sabbath, but like Deep Purple. I couldn't believe someone commented that Deep Purple wasn't a band inspired by the blues. And I'm like, what are you on about?
What are you on about?
They were literally a blues band.
That's crazy.
What are you on TikTok? And this was somebody, I clicked on their profile. They were young, Yasmin. They were like, they were maybe late teens, early 20s, but talking with their whole chest. You know?
Doesn't the internet love to do that? Talk with their whole chest. This is so interesting to get into because it goes so far back.
It goes so far back. What we have to, I think that we don't understand a lot of the time now, I am going to say that TikTok is the equivalent of what music was then. This is a hot take. I don't know if people are going to agree with this.
Controversial, Sophie.
So now I find
TikTok is the new vinyl.
Hey, ho. Whoa.
TikTok
Slow
is
down.
the new iPod.
Slow down. I think people don't realise is music was a rebellion for young people against the culture of growing up and adults. It was a place where young people came together. And it was a place that the grown-ups didn't understand. I mean, Elvis was banned from being shown on the BBC, for example. You could only show him waist up because it was seen as so out there. There was still so much controversy across the globe with these types of music genres, but young people came together and they used it as an outlet against the mainstream to rebel against things like war and racism. And it's really interesting because with that uprising of rock, there was a huge political and cultural movement which came out in 1976, and it was there was a rise in racist attacks in the streets of the UK, and there was an increase in support for like really far right groups like the National Front.
Oh my god, yeah, the National Front. I remember my mum. So my dad is Indian, he's brown, my mum is white, and my mum lives in a rural town in the middle of nowhere, and her whole family protested against National Front coming here because they were essentially asking to kick my dad out. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, in this time, I know people sometimes find it difficult to understand, but like my mum and dad being together was seen as so controversial, especially because my mum was so androgynous. So not only did it look like my dad, who was a long-haired white man, hippie, not only was he with someone black, he was with somebody who people didn't know whether she was a man or a woman.
It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy.
It's madness. But in that time, you've got to understand that there was a huge uprising. Bowie had said some not cool things about fascism.
Yep.
But he'd long worked with black artists and worked with black artists going forward. He married a black woman, for God's sake, and was in love with her till the day he died. I don't think he was a racist person. He said himself, he apologised, he was just so high on drugs, he didn't actually know what he was saying, and he was trying to repeat theories that he'd kind of got into discussing with his friends, his black friends as well. But he is also the guy who, in 1983, called out MTV for not playing black artists. Don't know if you've seen that.
There you go. There you bloody go.
1983 he was on MTV and he was like, why are you not showing black artists? But mainly the one that stands out to me is Eric Clapton. Now, Eric Clapton said some horrific things. And so anyway, this movement came forward, which was Rock Against Racism.
I know about this because...
Do you?
For Download Festival, which is a festival in the UK, for their 20th anniversary, I got one of my bestest friends on the planet, Gina, to paint me a jacket with every single black artist and every single person of colour who's ever played Download Festival. And I was looking for other things to put on the jacket, and I found a little Rock Against Racism pin.
That's so cool.
I know. You were on stage with me when I was wearing it.
I didn't even notice. But I did see I saw the outfit, just not the pin. Playing at that performance was The Clash, who, Joe Strummer, of course, one of my heroes, Pete Townsend of The Who, you had Misty and Roots, Aswad. It was everything from punk to reggae. It was like a mix, and they dabbled in all different types of music. But again, what I want to stress is it was rock that was fighting for not equality in music, equality at that time.
Equality in general.
Equality in general. And yes, sometimes it's easy to go back and look at an artist and call them a racist because they said certain things, but you've got to allow people time to grow and to say dumb stuff and evolve.
I hate to say this because I feel like we can never have these conversations without seeming like we're justifying racism or justifying like terrible things.
Yeah.
Like, oh, Sophie and Yasmin from the We Wear Black podcast the other week were like, racism is great. They endorse it. It wouldn't be the worst thing people have said about us this week.
That'll be the next pin you have on at the next festival.
Oh my God, stop it. But I think it's really interesting because, you know, you talk about 2000s emo and so much of it is so misogynistic. Even Hayley Williams has like come out and been like, Misery Business was super misogynistic, but that's not her fault. She was a product of her environment at the time and internalized misogyny. And it's like, people are a product of their environment. We can look back with hindsight and say, could have done this, should have done this. But it takes critical thinking skills to understand the landscape of things that were happening at the time, the reason that people acted, and judging them based on how they act now versus how they act then, not just assuming that they still believe those things because they were products of their environment.
100% Yasmin. This is why we do a podcast together, because I agree with you so fucking hard on this. And I don't know, I'm going to get really deep into it now, but sometimes I think that in the UK we can be a little bit more open when it comes to topics like race than in certain other countries, because a lot of the people that come here, I don't know, I feel that we live together a lot more.
Yeah, I feel like this is me. Are you ready to use my brain cells with me? Right.
Oh my gosh, go.
I feel like the socio-economic state of the UK is built to trod down on everyone who is lower class, and traditionally a lot of brown and black people and immigrants in general have been lower class because they migrated from different countries. Like my dad, who came here with nothing, so he had to live in often more lower income environments with a lot of white British people who also lived in lower income environments. So instead of it being a racial disparity, it was a socio-economic disparity, and everybody who was lower class was stepped on. And that's why political parties in modern day are emboldening whiteness so heavily, because it is the only thing that separates people of colour and white people, other than the fact that some are rich and some are poor. But like, there was so much unity between the working class. The working class wasn't a race, it was a group of everyone.
That is 100, because here's the thing that a lot of people might not understand. While Yasmin celebrates that they made a good point. My grandfather, who was Polish, he came over to the UK just after the Second World War. He'd been kidnapped by the Nazis, whole like horrific story.
That's crazy.
When he eventually married my grandmother, they weren't allowed to rent or buy a house in a lot of... They were only allowed to stay in certain areas, and my granddad could only do one of two jobs, going down the mines or going up and working in the big, like...
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And he was a white Polish man. So you did get this, like, these groups of working class people who were black, who were white, who were Asian, like, everybody.
I also think geographically as
together.
well, like America is so cut off from the rest of the world that the racial landscape and the geographical landscape is so specific, whereas the UK is so connected to European countries that you get poor white European people as well. Poor white people.
Do you know what else I think ties into it? And I might be mistaken here, so if you are listening to this and we're getting our facts wrong, please get in touch. We're not saying that you don't get racism in the UK. You 100% do. That's what this whole movement was about. Mm-hmm. But I think in America as well, a big part of it was so intrinsically tied to slavery.
100%.
And we did have slavery here in the UK, of course. But I think a lot of the people, the black and brown people in the UK, a lot of us know our heritage, and we can go back past our parent or our grandparent and we can go to the place where they came from. Whereas I think for a lot of Americans, they don't have that grounding in that sense, in that identity, because it was stolen from them.
Yeah.
And then you have the segregation of keeping people down. Anyway, I don't want to get too much into that because
For clarity, racism does obviously exist in the UK, but I think it's layered differently because of different climate and geographical factors and socioeconomic factors, and like racism, even though there's there's a working class unity, there is still racism in the UK, and it comes in different forms than it does to Americans. I find that in America it's very like blunt force, like people are just racist to your face, or in the UK it's a lot more microaggressions, which is, you know, it's its own complicated mix of problems. But me and Sophie could sit here and solve racism for you all. We're not going to do that.
This is an interesting point. It was made by Sid Shelton, and he took photos at Rock Against Racism. And he actually said, when I came back to the UK, I realised that things had changed a lot. Racism was because racism was, people were quite anti-racism, especially in the working classes, but they were being taught to become racist.
Yeah.
When he came back, he realised things had changed. Racism was becoming normalised, and prejudiced jokes were so frequent on TV that the National Front was getting up to 17% of the vote in local elections, and the police were openly racist, particularly against black youth.
Yeah.
And do you know what? This is also a time where you've got to think, like my dad, he always spoke about having long hair and driving around in an area of the UK. He would get he's a white man, he would get regularly stopped for having long hair. And he would have his car searched, he would be searched for drugs. Like,
it's crazy.
The police were unruly. So, the reason we've learnt that history is because that is where we understand that rap and rock were very separate genres. Rap was to appeal to the black youth, and rock had become a genre to appeal to the white youth. We're not going to get into why or how that happened, but that is where we were divided. Rock had been the dominant genre for decades, literally. Rap was having this uprising and it was becoming more popular, but it still wasn't like the main genre of music like we see today.
Yeah.
And it's only by understanding that you can understand that in 1986, when Run DMC and Aerosmith had a track together, why this was so powerful. Now, I want to clarify here.
That's crazy.
This was a Run DMC song, not an Aerosmith song. So Run DMC were like the cool new kids on the block. They were like coming up in that rap scene, which was particularly popular at the time. Aerosmith were kind of more of an aging rock band and had lost their cool.
Yeah.
But Rick Rubin, who we've talked about before because we talked about him as the producer of Slayer, he was co-founder of Def Jam Records, who birthed some of the most influential bands. So Run DMC didn't even know that song, Walk This Way. And it was a song that hadn't been a huge hit for Aerosmith back in the day, but they'd released it. It'd been a hit, but not a huge hit. It was from Toys in the Attic. So Run DMC didn't know that song. They knew it as Toys in the Attic #4. This is going to be an excerpt from Walk This Way by Jeff Eggers, which is copyrighted. What happened is Rick Rubin, he gave them the record, he gives them a yellow notepad and he gives them a pen and he says, go to Daryl's basement, listen to the song and write down lyrics. And that's the first time that they say they heard the words of the song, they didn't like it. They called it Hillbilly Bull. Hillbilly Bull, they said.
Yeah.
Aerosmith weren't sure. Run DMC weren't sure, but this was pushed forward. Run DMC released this song, and it was the biggest gift to Aerosmith that could have ever happened, because it charted higher than the original release of Walk This Way. And it created this hybrid song in 1986, which was the launch. A few years later, 5 years later, we have Anthrax with a track with Public Enemy, History Made, and they released Bring the Noise. It was a fresh take on the single. What was really interesting is Lauder interviewed Chuck D and Scott from Anthrax, and Chuck D said he was shown a copy of something, and the first page had Monsters of Rock Festival at Donington, which was the original name for Download Festival.
That's crazy.
In the UK. So he's all the way in America. He sees this, right? And he sees Scott Ian in a Public Enemy shirt, and he's like, damn, that's cool. So he reached out, they became friends. Scott Ian was a massive Public Enemy fan, and they ended up doing that track together.
Slay.
And so that's how they ended up doing that, like, all-time iconic track. And those 2 points, like, it just starts to topple. And there's lots more. I'm going to miss some out, but it starts to topple. So you've got Rage Against the Machine in 1992, and that is when they had the track Killing in the Name.
Yeah.
I mean, that song is genius.
It is.
Like, it's still so current.
I love that song so much. It's still so current.
Still so current. 1992 is also the year that you had Body Count. So Ice-T is already known in the rap world, but they released Cop Killer, which was a huge hit for them. So there was that real anti-police sentiment at this time, and like that uprising, and there was the crossover of rock bands using rap and the crossover of like hip hop artists in rock. And it's interesting because I don't think people realise how much controversy that song had. When Body Count performed in Milan in Italy, some of the punks began spitting at Ernie C. Ice-T attempted to calm down the situation by asking the crowd not to spit, but the spitting continued. As the band prepared to play Cop Killer, Ice-T identified an audience member who spat in his direction, and he rushed into the crowd and started punching this person as the band began to play, and some of the audience began fighting with Ice-T, and Body Count escaped the crowd mid-song and the promoter shut the concert down.
What? That's crazy.
This is madness, isn't it?
It's crazy. I feel like I heard a story about them or somebody else playing a song like that and then the police coming and shutting the show down. I could be wrong.
That's happened quite a few times. Happened with the Doors as well, where he got arrested on stage. There is so much happening at this time with rap and rock, but still, these are still young people's genres. This was a young vibe. I'm not getting into the metal world because that's a whole different ballgame. But 1993, there was a film called Judgment Night, and they had a film soundtrack which had 11 songs with rap rock collaborations.
Okay.
Of like iconic artists. 1993. Do you remember that band I was talking about? And I was like, who are these guys?
Yeah.
And they were like 311 or 311 or...
Yeah.
And I was like, who are... And they were on a festival lineup. I was like, who are these guys? They're really high up on the bill. Shame on me, because these are one of the early, like, nu metal bands.
Boo, Sophie. Boo.
Or rap rock
You didn't know a
bands.
band. Boo.
Shame.
Are we gonna touch nu metal? Because that's a whole other...
Well, that's where we go to. Because
ballpark,
nu metal,
yeah.
A lot of this music we're calling rap rock, but nu metal as a genre wasn't really born until, a lot of people say 1993, where Korn released their demo.
I love you, Korn.
And then they released their self-titled album in 1994. This is a time now where, when you look at the charts, if you go back in this time, you will see rap and rock in the charts sitting side by side, but separate. So we go forward. It's like Cypress Hill. We had a Cypress Hill and Rage Against the Machine cross. You had some weird crossovers because everyone was getting into it at this time. You might not know these, but some of you might if you're listening. You know that song by Big Pun is called Not a Player, and Incubus did a song together. In 1999, Limp Bizkit and Method Man did a song together. But in the year 2000, it was Linkin Park that really changed the game, and really, like, there's loads of bands that we could be talking about here that were inspired and called nu metal. But really, it was Linkin Park that solidified it.
Collision Course.
Hybrid Theory.
I mean, yes.
Because they so fluidly mixed rap and rock.
No, you're right. You are right.
And they made it, rather than like a rap artist and a rock artist coming together, they had this fluid sound that a lot of people tried to say they didn't like, but I think it appealed to rap fans and appealed to rock fans.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing that now on TikTok. Like when you're getting so many like black people saying how much they loved those artists.
Yeah.
But yes, you're right. Collision Course, 2004, that's when that came out. That was the Jay-Z Linkin Park crossover. That was pushed forward by MTV. But it's really interesting because at this point, rap is still ignoring rap rock.
Yeah.
And rock is hating rap rock or nu metal. Like,
it's weird because they both the genres fucking hated it.
but I don't understand because obviously they had huge followers and huge followings because they're huge. They're songs that have lasted and stood the test of time. So people obviously liked it. I think it was the media, which is often older people, right, in the media. Like people like me, isn't it, who I'm talking to Gen Zs, but I'm not a Gen Z.
Yeah, I guess. But then it's also, I don't know. I never really understood the hate. I think people thought it was corny at the time because it hadn't really been done before. But like, it's aged quite timelessly. It's
really interesting. I saw Loudwire had an article. And honestly, read it. It's really good. It's called "Nu Metal Fans Debate Why the Genre is So Hated." And I've got a quote from it. And it says, despite the many positive outlets it gave why can't I say that word?
Hormonal.
Despite the many positive outlets it gave hormonal teenagers in the 90s, once Fred Durst started talking about Nookie and breaking things, and then Papa Roach and Crazy Town and stuff like that came out, it started becoming a parody of itself. Essentially, it was seen by most as a toxic white male middle class anger music, and Woodstock 99 sealed its fate.
Do you know what? Maybe that was it. I feel like Linkin Park had the thing where it was like, but they aren't all just white dudes. So like there was some kind of trust there to be like, okay, like you get it. But it did kind of, I get that. I feel like at a certain point it did just feel like middle class white dudes doing a parody of rap. Yeah. But then they actually liked the genre. I don't know.
I feel like the noughties just became like hella toxic. Like hella toxic. And that's in film.
Girl, Victoria's Secret shows, the model industry, the beauty industry, the 2000s was hell. It
was hell. Like it was, and it's everything from film to music. Everything was just awful. So now we're going to get to the time where, but Yasmin, I'm just going to say that around the early 2010s, you had, it kind of had disappeared. You had some attempts. So you had like, I'm not going to class bands like Attila. Whatever that is, I'm not classing that. But Fall Out Boy did a song with Big Sean. And Within Temptation did a track with Exhibit. And Lil Wayne went through a rock phase. I mean, he went on tour with Blink-182, if you remember that.
Yeah, I do remember that. And people got mad about it. And I was like, why? That's just stupid.
Why were people so like up in arms about that? They were vexed. Do you remember?
And that was recently. And it's like, hello, it's been 20 years since like the whole 2000s nu metal. Like, oh my god, right. When
was that? Would you say that was about 2015, maybe?
No, I think like 2016, 2017. Maybe even more recently than that. I think it was just pre-COVID.
No, it was way before pre-COVID.
It was 2019.
But wasn't it scheduled before and then delayed until 2019 for some reason?
Maybe.
Anyway.
We go into my era now. This is my special interest. The 2010s emo rap and trap metal era is I think the reason I like it is because everyone fucking hated it so much. Kind of like how metal and rap turned on these artists putting out these songs. Everyone fucking hated emo rap and everyone hated trap metal. They hated trap metal less because I think it was more aggressive, so people kind of understood it. But emo metal in the 2010s, people hated it. So timeline wise, in the early 2000s you had like the boom of emo and nu metal was obviously popping off and metal was on the rise, and then it kind of like burnt out by 2010. Like you had the Warped Tour core era of bands, but they were just all recycling the same riff. So while that was happening, I feel like underground on SoundCloud and on these like new platforms, essentially like when MySpace died, everyone kind of, the internet, I feel like MySpace was the thing that held all of the alternative community and its umbrella together. When that died, I feel like people went in different directions. Some people went on YouTube and you had My Digital Escape and all the emo YouTubers. Some people went on Twitter and you had like Stan Twitter and emo Twitter, Tumblr. But then I think a lot of people also went on SoundCloud. And the kids who grew up with nu metal were like, oh, I want to make music now. What was I listening to when I grew up? Oh, I was listening to Linkin Park. I was listening to Jay-Z. I was listening to, like, Korn, Limp Bizkit. I was listening to all of these, like, crossovers that you just mentioned. The kids who grew up listening to that were now making their own music. But because it was in the echo of emo, I think a lot of them were also inspired by emo. So you've got emo rap. One of the first emo rappers, well, it's heavily debated who did it first, but most people accept that Bones was like the first emo rapper. I love you, Bones. They could never make me hate you, Bones. And that was like...
Is Bones alive?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
That was only like 10 years ago, so yeah.
Well, emo rappers didn't like... They don't have the best...
They don't have the best track record for longevity,
no.
I know. Bones, I'm pretty sure, I could be wrong, is still alive and released music on SoundCloud in early 2010s, like 2012, 2013.
Interesting. I'm just looking at pictures of Bones here. So Bones is a white dude and looks like a metalhead.
Bones is a white dude and looks like a metalhead, yes.
And so, did Bones do it like big in the rock world, or was Bones more in the rap world?
So the thing is with emo rap was probably more accepted in the rap world because it borrowed more from rap. Like, it was lyrically emo and thematically emo, but sonically and like the bass line of it, like the structural integrity of it was rap. Like, you had 808s with suicidal lyrics. That is emo rap in a nutshell. So Bones did it.
So it's the opposite, because we had rock with rap vocals.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay.
So then you had Goth Boy Clique as well, which was like a big collection of different emo rappers. One of the most...
Not heard of any of this.
One of the most notable ones was Little Peep. So
Yes.
Goth Boy Clique was... Let me get you all the names because it changed so much over the years, like most cliques. So the members were Cold Heart, Doves, Fishnark, said. These names are so insane. Lil Tracy, Wickerface, Springs Eternal, Yawns, Lil Peep, JP Dream Thug. These are crazy. So yeah, the Goth Boy Clique was probably the most prominent like group, and they I think that's why it was more considered rap, because it borrowed more elements from rap culture and rap music, like having a group and having like a entourage and the aesthetics of rap. Like, it was more based on like hip hop and street style fashion than it was emo. Like, it was street style, just dark. But yeah, so then
it's pretty cool. Like, looking at it, the imagery, and that's where I know you're probably going to come to it, but it also, all the imagery is very like what I associate with Scarlord, because Scarlord interestingly tried to break into the rock world.
I love you, Scarlord. So he is more trap metal, and that will come. That'll come.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So there is a difference.
So he's trap metal.
Yeah, so he's trap metal.
So we're on emo rap.
We're on emo rap right now. Emo rap, I'd argue, came first. Trap metal was more like 2013, 2014 with Ghostmane and then Scarlord and all of those early people in the game. But yeah, so emo rap, Bones, Goth Boy Clique, Lil Tracy, Lil Uzi, Lil Lotus, a lot of Lils. Nothing Nowhere, pretty early in the emo rap game. Femme, Rico Nasty, one of the most like big.
Is Rico Nasty seen as like?
Yeah.
Oh, I like Rico Nasty, but I didn't know.
I think Rico Nasty is seen as in the emo rap sphere. Same with Femme. XXXTentacion, Trippie Redd. Like, over the years, it's grown more. Probably one of the most prominent emo rappers, Juice WRLD, who sadly passed away at the age of like 19 or 20, which is crazy. And same with Lil Peep. They both passed away before they were like 22, 23. It's crazy.
So Lil Uzi Vert is in that world as well, would you say?
Lil Uzi Vert is like one of the most prominent people still in emo rap, because the rest are dead. And
Suicide Boys as well. Everyone always talks about them. They play rock. They play rock events, don't they?
I love you, Suicide Boys.
Did they not break in the rap world? Or they did? Or are they straddling both?
They did break in the rap world, but I think people saw them as a bit too corny. So the problem is, around like 2015, when the emo rap sphere, it'd been bubbling in the underground SoundCloud world, when SoundCloud was like really starting to take hold of people. It started bubbling there. 2015 to 2016, it really popped off, right? And nobody took like any of these rappers seriously, especially like rap fans didn't. So like, there's an SNL sketch with like all the lil rappers, and it's like I think it's Pete Wentz and somebody else making fun of all the
not Pete
rappers.
Wentz.
Lil Pete Wentz. Yeah.
Snoop.
No, Pete Davidson.
Pete Davidson.
Oh my god, I'm so
Pete Davidson.
stupid. Yeah, there's an
Pete
SNL.
Wentz is in Fall Out Boy.
There's an SNL skit where Pete Davidson and someone else is making fun of emo rappers, despite the fact that a lot of Pete Davidson's friends are and were emo rappers. Machine Gun Kelly comes into that, but he managed to put himself in the rock sphere more, I think, because he had a pop punk phase.
But he was a rapper originally and made it in rap.
But then,
well, not made it.
He
failed in rap.
He failed in rap terribly because he always had that kind of emo aesthetic. He teetered the line of emo rap, but he did a song with Sleep with Sirens, and that kind of like solidified his like, oh, he's an emo dude who does rap.
And XXX, how do you say it? XXX
Tentacion.
I've never tried to say it out loud. He sampled Slipknot in a tune, right?
He did,
which
and
was
then
a big moment.
He sampled Slipknot, I'm pretty sure. Lil Peep sampled Pierce the Veils, Today I Saw the Whole World, and Avenged Sevenfold in a few of his songs.
Did he? I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think it's Move On Be Strong. Lil Peep sampled an Avenged Sevenfold song, and then I Crash You Crash is a sample of Today I Saw the Whole World acoustic cover. I love that I know this. I have like these random bits of knowledge. I think emo rap really hit its peak in 20...
Wasn't it just before, was it 2019? No.
2017.
2017, yeah, that would make more sense, yeah.
Because Goodbye and Good Riddance by Juice WRLD came out in 2018, and then let me see when Lil Peep's album came out. And then also, at that time, you also had rappers who were just into emo, but didn't make emo rap. So Post Malone, MGK. Post Malone was going to be in Crown the Empire. People don't know this. Post Malone...
Well, he wasn't going to be in it. They turned him down.
He interviewed to be in Crown the Empire, and they said no.
But that, I'll tell you what, that crossover that Post Malone... I think Post Malone has done more for rock than most rock artists have. And I am including the young artists who kept saying that they weren't rock for a long time until it became big on TikTok. But Post Malone... even when those artists were saying, oh no, we're not a rock band, promise, until they went viral on TikTok and they're like, yes, our old music, yes, we're definitely rock again. But Post Malone, he did that track with Ozzy Osbourne, which I thought was, because we hadn't had rock on an awards show for so long, and him doing that was powerful.
Yeah.
And I don't think he gets enough credit for how he, I think, was part of the movement of making it cool again and the uprising on TikTok. But anyway.
100%. And I think, so for clarity, Lil Peep put out Hellboy in 2016. Goodbye and Good Riddance by Juice WRLD came out in 2018. So that period of time is when emo rap was at its peak. At its peak. Everyone was sad. And I also feel like there were a lot of people who grew up with rock and metal, either through their parents or just growing up in that time, who weren't necessarily like outwardly alternative, but really enjoyed that music, like a Post Malone, like an MGK. So having these people come forward and be like, oh yeah, I like rap and I'm a rapper, but I also like rock, it kind of helped bring it to the mainstream again. But anyway, just dipping into trap metal. I'm not as well versed with trap metal, so it's kind of hard to track when these artists put out their music because it was all on SoundCloud, and a lot of it is now gone. A lot of it's now gone, in the same way that a lot of stuff on MySpace is now gone. Kill Station was also quite a big name in the trap metal world, but it was when Ghostmane put out Hexada album in 2017.
Was it that Fuck Me Like You Hate Me?
Yeah, and then he also put out the Human Error single in 2019. So that was when trap metal started to pop off, like the mid to late 2010s. Same with like Scarlord and a bunch of other people. But yeah, and then I feel like emo rap and trap metal allowed for the return of emo and rock in the mainstream, and then you had pop punk, and now you're going back into like all the hardcore stuff, and I'm kind of excited to see what happens, because it happens every 10 years where like a genre comes back and then it burns out again and it goes underground, and then we get something new. And we got emo rap in the 2010s. Can't wait to see what we got cooking right now, guys.
What was that song? Date me like you hate. I'm singing the wrong lyrics.
That's not Ghostmane. That's Corpse Husband.
That was it. That was all over TikTok. I remember that.
Yeah. Corpse Husband is probably like a modern day emo rapper. He's done songs with Bring Me the Horizon. So here's what I have an issue with. Because when we talk about every artist that we've probably mentioned over this span of time has been supported by the mainstream machine,
of music industry, money. With the resurgence of people getting into rock, I think there is a real reason why you'll get having 20-year-olds listening to music like Papa Roach, which they shouldn't be listening to.
Yeah.
And Limp Bizkit. They shouldn't. That's like listening to, I don't know, it's like me listening to classic rock. It's just they should be listening to younger music. But I think because the machine hasn't invested any money into this new trend, they've only invested in people who are already well known, like Machine Gun Kelly, and like Willow Smith. And good for you, Willow. But is she changing her sound away from rock? I don't know. Like, how committed is she to the genre? Is she going to be a Papa Roach still making rock songs 20 years later? That's what I mean.
It'll be interesting for sure. For sure. Like, there's been this boom in rock, and it'll be interesting to see who's around in the next 10 years. Will we even be around? I'm kidding. Hopefully.
Are they putting any money into any young rock artists, like, genuinely? And, like, really blowing them up? I think Bring Me the Horizon have obviously had a lot of money pumped into them, but I think they were kind of already on that trajectory. And they did that by stopping playing heavier music. They went more, we're never shouting again.
And then shouted again.
And then shouted again because it became popular. I mean, Bring Me the Horizon have always been very, very clever at doing what's popular. They've always been very clever at that. But why isn't the mainstream music industry investing in rock anymore? I don't know.
Girl, that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
I really want to find out the answer to this question. But anyway,
I do think the mainstream is investing into rock, but it's investing into commercially friendly rock. So you've got like I'm about to say something controversial.
Oh, let's go.
I think that there is the actual rock scene, and then there is the surface level rock scene, and you've got cool people in there like Olivia Rodrigo, who's like pop punkish, pop rockish, and I really like her, and I think the way that her campaign and her image has been executed feels authentic to her audience. And it's less about her being rock pop and more like her being a angsty teenager / adult coming into womanhood, and that's something that can resonate with any kind of rock or alternative genre. So I think that works. But then you've also got MGK and the TikTok people, and some of the TikTok people are good and some of the artists are genuinely authentic artists, but there are definitely some TikTok artists that are having money thrown at them, and they're like, I'm gonna have a rock phase and I'm gonna make rock music and make people angry and be edgy, and I get why labels are throwing their money at those people because they've already got the pre-made following and they're sipping my tea. They've already got the following, so it's like you don't have to build that audience, it's already there, and they can just shape the visuals around you and do the songs for you. But I've said too much. I need to leave. No. See you later, guys.
I don't think that's too bad, Yasmin. I'm pissed because I'm thinking, why are major labels investing money into acts who are already well known? Why are they not investing into acts within the rock scene who are writing killer songs, but they're going to take them to the next level?
Because they're lazy. Because it's easier to invest in someone who's already got the following, who's already got the dedicated audience, who already has done half the work for you, than it is to make an artist from new completely. It's so much easier to say an artist is going through a rock phase than to create a new artist entirely.
Do you know what? You're right. And the thing is, like, with, say, a Sleep Token, they can invest in Sleep Token now because Sleep Token are already at the size of selling out 2 massive arenas.
There is a difference between an MGK and a TikTok rock star versus a Sleep Token and a Bad Omens
or a 21 Pilots.
Those are 2 bands that have such a huge history in the scene already and are now at a point where major labels are investing in them and can take them to that next level, whereas an MGK, and I hate to use him as an example, but he is an example of someone who his rap career didn't work, so his PR team went, let's turn to rock instead because it works, and you've already got an audience of people, so you've got guaranteed streams.
Man, it's interesting, isn't it?
I love exposing music industry secrets.
So is that you done with the kind of that era of it?
Yeah, that's my info dump.
Because
enjoy.
want to also add to that.
Okay.
There are other bands now as we enter this new phase of whatever we're in. Fever 333, Love 'Em or Hate 'Em, we've got to admit, Falling in Reverse are doing the crossover in a big way, especially out in America and in the charts. I think the Cobra remix with Spirit Box is a very telling and interesting thing that happened.
I love it so much.
But then, here's one that has completely thrown me, Yasmin. Like, thrown me off into another realm.
Okay.
Have you seen that Five Finger Death Punch have put out a song with DMX?
No, because I don't know anything about Five Finger Death Punch, but go on.
Right, let me tell you, right? Five Finger Death Punch, who are a band who are pretty much associated with that early 2000s style, like, I'm in the army, I'm in the police.
Rock and roll, yeah,
like,
America.
That
Eagles,
America.
Yeah.
They're associated with being really America Eagles.
I call it WrestleMania 2003 core.
Yeah, I would call it, let's support the troops unless they're actually suffering with PTSD and living on the streets. Cool. Oh, sorry. That's going to get me cancelled. Five Finger Death Punch have long been fans, I did not know this, long been fans of DMX.
They've not done a song with... You're lying. You're lying?
DMX passed
You're
away
lying.
in 2021, and so they weren't able to do a song with DMX, but they've been in negotiation with his estate because they were talking about doing a song together, right?
No,
and
shut up.
They didn't manage to make it happen. DMX's most famous songs, they've remixed it into a track, so it's like a Five Finger Death Punch DMX collaboration track.
That's crazy.
I'll be honest with you here, Yasmin, and this kind of is going to tap into my words of wisdom. I don't think the word racism is enough anymore. I think we need different words, all different words of racism. I think we need like 3 different words for racism and for different types of racism. I think having one word isn't enough because there's so many different types.
I get you, but usually your words of wisdom are so wholesome that I was expecting you to be like, everybody should get along and everybody should enjoy music, and instead you're like, racism is not surface level. It's actually so intrinsically deep that we need different levels, different names for different levels of racism. Well, it's kind of like microaggressions. Like, you call a microaggression is a form of racism, but it's not the same as an outward slur. It's like a subtle thing that when built over time is the effect of like a direct slur.
I think for a lot of I've solved racism, by the way, Yasmin.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad you did that. I was literally just thinking like, oh, I'm so sick of racism, but I'm really glad that you solved it.
Took me 2 hours of research, and I've solved it. Basically, here's the conclusion I came to. Bear in mind what I've just told you about Five Finger Death Punch.
Yes.
And, Zoltan said a few controversial things over the years, whatever. We now go to, I researched what bands said about Black Lives Matter, and we associate Axl Rose with being one of those people who, he wrote a song that was quite offensive in the past.
Yeah.
1 in a million. But what's really interesting is Guns N' Roses gave open support for BLM on Instagram at the time it was happening in 2020. And Axl Rose even tweeted Donald Trump and said, lamestream media isn't doing everything within their power to foment hatred and anarchy. Thank you. He tweeted, as long as we get what you're doing, that you're fake news and a truly bad, repulsive excuse for a person with a sick agenda, we can work past you with whatever it takes to be a better, stronger future. So
well
basically,
done.
What we've learned from David Bowie, from the history of rap and rock and racism, is that rock isn't a anti-black genre. In fact, a lot of the people who you would have thought were anti-black are actually pro-black. But the understanding, and I think sometimes when we use the word racism, it shuts down people's brains. They think of standing out there saying the N-word, and so it shuts their brain. And they're like, I'm not racist.
Yeah.
And so we need a word. And I know people will go, we shouldn't have to accommodate blah, 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 blah. But I think we need a word for it's like, what you're doing is racially offensive, and you need to address yourself. I don't know.
My words of wisdom. Can I speak now?
But just giving you that information.
My words, someone's going to go on Twitter and say, Yasmin spoke over a black person, and it's like, fuck, I'm sorry. My words of wisdom are, don't do a serious episode with Sophie when you've had 2 hours sleep, because all of the thoughts that you have, all of the brain cells you could use are gone. I wish I could say something intellectual. Maybe rock isn't racist, but people in rock have a capacity to be racist, and it's not the genre itself, but it's us as a collective community checking our behavior, educating ourselves, and doing better. And that's on period.
So you don't have your brain cells. That sounded like brain cells to me. Like brain cells to me.
That was the last one. I'm dead.
R.I.P. Yasmin. I think historically what we've proven over this episode is that rap and rock are two sides of the same coin. Yes, you get those people who say, we don't like rap. You're misunderstanding the meaning of what this genre is. Yeah, that's where we're at.
Take that.
That is where we're at. Two sides of the same coin. All right then, well, if you want to get in touch with us,
at We Wear Black Pod, Twitter, Instagram, and all the social medias, wewearblackpod@gmail.com. I'm at Yasmin Sumanex on everything.
And I am at I am Sophie K on everything.
Okay, bye.